Hello, listeners, and welcome to the classy Codpast, where we take everyday topics, flip them on their head, and converse about them in an elegant manner. Because of our 400th anniversary, we have a very special guest, so tune in later to find out who. I'm your host, Cooper Cornbread Sprigman.
I'm your co-host, Grant Erickson Wood.
And I'm Miss Hardy.
And I'm your other co-host, Esteban Preston Arevalo. So, Grant, I heard you're kind of starting your fitness journey, aren't you?
Yeah, I actually just started lifting in the gym
No way.
5 years ago. Just
5
5 years ago?
Yeah.
So, tell me, when you, walk into the gym and you, scan your barcode and let's say, the guy at the front, he says, yo, Grant, you're looking massive today. How would you take that?
Honestly, it's like,
So weird.
no, I take it as a really good compliment. Just from guy to guy, saying that you're massive is just a great compliment.
Yeah, I know. So, the reason I ask is because, my mom's been on a weight loss journey recently, and I feel like if I said that to her, she would probably, beat me. So, I just think it's interesting how, how different genders interpret the way we communicate and how, the stereotypes talk about, or the stereotypes, dictate how we actually communicate and the societal pressures that are associated with that.
Yeah, for sure.
As you can see from that anecdote from my beautiful co-host, that kind of covers about what we're going to talk about today, which is how gender stereotypes affect the way humans communicate friendships and emotions, and the various subtopics, including gender stereotypes amongst teens, societal norms and expectations when communicating, and the reality and pressures associated with communication. So let's dive right in.
So I think before we start this discussion, we need to emphasize the differences between gender and sex, because sex is a biological category based on physical features, while gender is it's a social construct that is it implies the set of expectations about what it means to be a boy or a girl, or masculine or feminine and stuff. So let's address the stereotypes and the myths concerning gender. So when you guys think of, let's say a guy, what do you think of? What are some characteristics of a guy?
Probably big, strong, handsome, big.
I would like to agree with Grant there, but I also think they're probably taller. They probably have a different sense of style, and they have sharper features, a sharper jawline.
You gotta be a short dude.
Well, just the stereotypical dude is probably tall, handsome,
Big.
yeah, big, and the stereotypical woman would be probably shorter than the man.
Pretty petite.
Yeah.
Probably looks like Miss Hardy.
Yep.
Looks like Miss
Long
Hardy.
hair.
Soft-spoken.
Humble. All that good stuff.
And they have less sharp features, so they have more rounder, noses and stuff like that.
So how would you guys feel if I said that communication styles are neither feminine nor masculine?
That would blow
Are
my
you
mind.
serious?
That would blow my mind.
Are you serious right now?
Because I don't know, I just feel if you gave me a neutral, if you just gave me a AI voice recording of ChatGPT saying a conversation, I feel like I could be able to pick out if a girl or a boy was saying sentences.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, think about it, because the body produces both estrogen and testosterone in boys and girls, so no one's entirely just a guy or entirely just a girl.
Oh, okay. So, some certain guys could have more estrogen, whereas some certain girls could have more testosterone than the average woman.
Exactly. And, that also affects, the behaviors with it, because, back in the day, when, we were hunter-gatherers, the guys were seen to be the hunters and the women the gatherers, but, that doesn't mean that there are gender roles rooted in biology, you know?
Yeah, it can kind of go either way depending on the person.
It's kind of just saying a girl could be smarter than a boy, or a boy could be smarter than a girl.
Exactly.
It's not rooted in their
Exactly.
genetics.
Here, riddle me this. A boy is fishing with a doctor. The boy is the doctor's son, but the doctor is not the boy's father. How is the doctor related to the boy?
He's her
Grandpa.
mother.
The doctor is the boy's mother.
Let's go, man.
So, Grant, you automatically assume
dang it.
grandpa. because it's a guy, but girls can be doctors too. So that just, it shows that we kind of have like a, not,
Prejudice.
yeah, we kind of have like a prejudice.
An underlying
Give me the definition of prejudice, Cooper. Prejudice, a judgment before knowing something, like a stereotype.
Or like Pride and Prejudice.
Exactly. But yeah, that prejudice kind of stops us from being able to discern the differences between masculine and feminine sometimes. So, with that, did you know that there's actually a word that combines like this whole concept of masculine and femininity, like being combined?
No way.
Really, what is it?
It's called androgynous.
Androgynous?
Yeah. Grant,
I feel like I've
spell
heard of that in
androgynous.
biology.
ANDROGYNOUS.
Good. But did you know that there's also a term that means the opposite? Which means like possessing neither feminine nor masculine traits.
Is it androgynous?
No, but you're close.
Is it chondrogynous?
No. Starts with un.
Bidrogynous?
No.
Androgynous.
The term is undifferentiated, which means, like I said, neither masculine nor feminine. So, Cooper, why don't you tell us how, taking these definitions into account, how does society shape the norms and expectations of being a man or a woman?
And now we're going to be covering the societal norms and expectations when communicating. So, Grant, if I were to ask you how you would expect a man to communicate, how would you answer?
I'd probably say he's gonna like have a lower voice, obviously, because of like the testosterone and whatnot. Probably more like open body language, I would say. Men are more likely to like, just be open and like kind of try and take control of the space, Then they're gonna be really confident in their messages. But also, what I've noticed is minimal eye contact. That's something that I struggle with, honestly, and a lot of other guys I know. It's just something rooted deep within. I would
That's
guess.
a great observation, and those findings are backed by studies. But Eswan, so I'm asking you the opposite here. How would you expect women to communicate?
Well, due to the estrogen in their bodies, they're going to have a higher tone of voice. They might have more closed body language, be a little more reserved and quiet. They might even be unsure of their message, and they'll ask questions. They'll kind of be more submissive in the conversation. But in light of that, they'll also have lots of eye contact. They'll be very, very invested in the conversation and be active listeners.
They'll put their phones away.
Amen. So, and then also with that, there's intimacy, which requires partners to express themselves through some combination of physical contact, shared experiences, intellectual sharing, and emotional disclosures. So, as you can see, it's kind of a combination of that which makes people communicate. Someone like Cooper, who I'm shorter in stature than Grant, and I'm probably have less testosterone in my body than Grant, so I would have a higher tone of voice than Grant, but I would also probably have more eye contact than he would. Okay, so we're going to talk to you guys about a real life example of these societal norms and then intimacy. So let's say Ben and Beatrice are wonderful lovers, right? They love each other's company, they love hanging out with each other, and they're dating. But using those societal norms, Ben has always thought, and he's always been taught that he needs to be the silent provider, and he just needs to put his head down, work through all of his problems on his own, and just provide for his family and his loved ones. And Beatrice kind of also suffered from that. She's always been taught that she's been there to help others and just be the an emotional charger and just help other people work through their problems. But intimacy is when you forget these roles and you work together to share the load. So if Ben started to become more emotional and help those around him and ask questions about how others are doing, but also share how he's doing, that would help their relationship thrive. And also if Beatrice, if she started working on some problems through her own, but also providing for the family, if it's just a combination of both these roles and norms that society is pushed through, that's when intimacy thrives. And those are the best and strongest relationships, is when a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman, or a man and a man can swap their societal norms and what they're expected to do and have a combination of multiple different communication styles. So now that you know how those societal norms and expectations when communicating impact intimacy, we're going to continue and talk about the reality and pressures associated with communication by Grant.
So now we're going to start talking about the reality and pressures associated with communication. And to help us out with this section, we have an amazing special guest, Gracie Allen. And we're going to ask her a couple questions to find out some more specific things about her communication style. So Gracie, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So how would you feel, or how would you communicate with someone who just flunked a test?
I would probably tell them it's okay, and they are more than their F on a test, and they can always work to make it better.
So you would say you would come in with more of like a soft, supportive approach?
Yeah,
and, like,
I would
kinda
probably maybe try to talk about something else that maybe they're excited about, and take their mind off of it.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Okay, awesome. And then also, what would you do if you wanted to start dating someone? How would you communicate with them?
Or how would you approach that?
I would probably start talking to that person more, and maybe like exclusively talking to that person, and probably complimenting them, and I don't know what else.
Would you wait? Would you take the initiative, or would you wait for them?
I would wait. I would like compliment them in hopes that they would see that I wanted to date.
So you want the guy in the relationship to be bold,
Definitely.
while you're just kind of going with the
Definitely.
flow.
Just there. All right, awesome. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And now we have another guest, Ben Wilkinson. How are you doing today, Ben?
You know what? I'm doing great, Grant. How are you?
Hey, Ben.
I'm good. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for
So-
having me on.
Yeah, we're just going to ask you a few simple questions on here to find out more about your communication styles as a dominant male.
Okay.
So, first question, how would you communicate with someone who just flunked a test?
You know, I would be like, grades don't really matter in the big scheme of things. Like, even though you fail a test, it's not a reflection of who you are as a person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'd try to comfort them. I'd be like, well, there's always next test, or you can try to retake the test.
If you could pick one word to describe how you would approach them, what word would that be?
Sympathy, I think.
Okay. All right. And then next question, what would you do if you wanted to start dating someone? How would you communicate with that person?
Or approach that?
I'd get the number, okay? Number sets boys from men, okay? Boys use Snapchat, men use number. So I would go on the number, you know, make sure she knows that, like, I'm serious, and go from there, probably.
So you would take
Get in my zone.
You would take the initiative?
Yeah, I take the initiative, 100%.
Do you believe that as a man, you're supposed to take the initiative?
Yes,
Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
So you would say that someone someone that doesn't want to do that, they're not quite at a man yet, right? They don't have that masculinity.
Yeah, but it also has to be both sides.
Yeah, like they.
Yeah.
It's a give and a take.
Yeah, it's a give and a take, really. That's a great way.
It's kind of like fishing, you know. You have to cast.
Yeah, it's kind of like fishing. If you just sit there, like, not trying to do anything, you're not going to catch a fish.
Exactly,
But if you try and fish a few times,
Yeah.
you're going to catch a fish eventually.
Yeah, like you have to cast the line, but the fish also has to bite the hook.
Yeah, so it's kind of a two-way.
That age-old mantra.
Unless you false hook someone.
There's plenty
What
of
I mean.
fish in the sea.
Yeah,
Plenty of fish in the sea.
plenty
Yep.
of fish.
All right.
Well, thanks, Ben. You contributed a lot to our podcast today.
Thank you.
All right. So after hearing both of those anecdotes, some sort of differences between the two communication styles of the teen male and the teen female. The differences start to arise, and we start to realize some things. So Cooper, what was the one thing that you noticed difference between them?
I'm gonna keep Esteban. I'm gonna have him answer that second question that we asked both of them. But one thing that I kind of noticed is that second question they differed, and Esteban's gonna go more into detail on that. But that first question, they were pretty close to being the same. Wouldn't you guys agree? They were both sympathetic. They were trying to help the person. They were being kind, and that kind of shows that This kind of shows that what Esteban was saying earlier with that first topic that we talked about, how they're really, there's nothing biological about these communication norms, right? In these places, there's situations and scenarios where both a man and a female would react the same way, which is what we just saw. They were both sympathetic, and they both helped the person that just flunked the test. But now Esteban's going to go into more detail about how they would start dating someone.
So, thanks, Cooper. What I noticed is that while they had separate answers, they were kind of the same in the way that they agreed that the man should be, take initiative, be bold, and the woman should not just sit around doing nothing, but typically they're not the ones that makes the first move. So they both agree that there's a certain level of difference in these stereotypes. And I personally agreed with Ben's answer. I believe that the man in the relationship should be the one taking the girl on dates, should be making all the moves in the relationship to kind of get the ball rolling. But after that, it should be a unit. You guys should be working as one. But to start that, it's kind of up to the man.
But do you pay?
Yes, the man does pay.
Guy does
but
pay for
after
that.
you get married, the man still pays.
No halvesies ever.
No halves.
Nope.
All right.
And if you're broke, then you shouldn't be dating. You should be getting your money up.
So, after listening to this episode of the Classy Codpast, I hope that you can understand that, gender stereotypes affect the way people communicate friendships and emotions. And, there's the gender stereotypes, the societal norms and expectations when communicating, and the reality and pressures that are associated with communication. And, I hope that you guys can all take what we talked about earlier today and understand why Grant and Esteban's mother would react differently to being called massive, But they would probably react similarly to helping someone who just lost their dog. So the next time you wonder, hey, why did he communicate like that? Or why did she say that? I hope you remember this special 400th anniversary episode of the Classy Codpast.
I am not 400.
And thank you to Mrs. Hardy for letting us use her classroom and her ad-libs.